He's so clueless, darling. He'd never notice a thing.
Funny, I noticed that.
The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clanged against the concrete garage floor. Not because I was clumsy, I'd been fixing cars since I was 16, but because my wife Dana's voice carried through the thin wall separating our garage from the kitchen, and what she said made me freeze. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. He's so clueless, darling. I could parade you naked through our living room and Harold would just ask if you want coffee. Laughter bubbled through the phone speaker. Male laughter. Deep, confident, and way too familiar. I wiped my hands on an old rag, my heart hammering against my ribs. 23 years of marriage, and Dana had never called me clueless to my face. Behind my back, apparently, was a different story. "Owen, you're terrible," she giggled. Owen Frazer, her boss at Midwest Logistics Solutions, the same Owen who'd been mentoring her for the past 6 months, helping her climb the corporate ladder at their sleek downtown office while I supervised shipping routes for the same company from our dingy warehouse across town. I crept closer to the door, pressing my ear against the wood. "When can I see you again?" Owen's voice was muffled but clear enough. "This weekend? Harold's always tinkering with something in that garage. Saturday works. He'll be at his boxing gym with that loser friend of his. You know, Coach whatever his name is." Loser friend. Lyle Bannerman had been my best friend since high school, had stood up at our wedding, had helped me through my dad's funeral 3 years ago. Dana had smiled and brought him casseroles when his wife left him. "Perfect," Owen purred. "I've missed you, baby. Baby." The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Dana hadn't called me anything but Harold in years. I stood there in my garage, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and old dreams, listening to my wife plan her next betrayal. The Ford's engine block loomed above me, suspended by chains that suddenly looked like nooses. My phone buzzed, a text from my daughter Mickey, away at college. "Dad, can you talk? Mom's acting weird lately." Even our 22-year-old daughter had noticed. I was apparently the only blind fool in the family. Dana's voice drifted through the wall again. "I have to go. Harold's making noise in the garage. Love you too." Love you too. When was the last time she'd said that to me? I couldn't remember. The kitchen door opened and Dana appeared, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite being home all evening, her makeup fresh like she just reapplied it, for a phone call. "How's the car coming along?" she asked, not really looking at me. "Just fine," I said, studying her face. The same face I'd fallen in love with 25 years ago, now wearing an expression I didn't recognize. Guilt, maybe, or pity. "Good. I'm going to bed early. Big day tomorrow." "What's happening tomorrow?" "Just work stuff. You know how it is." But I didn't know how it was. I didn't know anything, apparently. She kissed my cheek, a dry, obligatory peck, and headed back inside. I watched her go, noting how she'd started wearing perfume again after years of claiming it gave her headaches. I picked up my wrench and stared at the engine. My grandfather had taught me that every machine had a breaking point. Push too hard, ignore the warning signs, and eventually something would snap. I was starting to understand that marriages worked the same way. The next morning, Dana left for work, wearing a new dress I'd never seen, humming under her breath. She'd made coffee for herself, but not for me. When I asked about her day, she gave me the same vague answers she'd been giving for months. Just the usual, meetings, paperwork, you know. I knew she was lying. The question was, what was I going to do about it? At the warehouse, I went through the motions of supervising shipments and checking manifests, but my mind kept drifting to that phone call, the casual cruelty of it. The way she'd dismissed not just me, but Lyle, too. Good people who'd never done anything but support her. During lunch, I drove to Lyle's boxing gym. The place smelled like sweat and ambition, filled with kids from the rough side of town learning to channel their anger into something productive. Lyle was working the heavy bag, his gray hair damp with sweat. "Harold!" He grinned when he saw me. "Didn't expect you till Saturday." "Yeah, well, needed to hit something." He tossed me a pair of gloves. "Woman trouble?" Lyle had always been able to read me like a book. It's what made him a good coach. "Something like that." We worked the bags for an hour, the repetitive thud of leather against canvas drowning out the noise in my head. But when we finished, the anger was still there, coiled tight in my chest. "You want to talk about it?" Lyle asked, toweling off. I almost told him everything, about the phone call, the lies, the way Dana looked right through me these days. But something held me back. Maybe pride, maybe the hope that I was wrong about everything. Just work stress, I said. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. That evening, Dana announced she'd be working late the next day, a special project with Owen. They'd probably grab dinner afterward to discuss strategy. Sounds important, I said. It is. This could really advance my career. I'll bet it could. Friday night, she came home at 11:30, claiming traffic had been terrible and the restaurant slow. She smelled like wine and expensive cologne. Not Owen's usual drugstore aftershave, but something that probably cost more than I made in a week. How was dinner? I asked. Fine. Boring work talk mostly. She went straight to the shower, staying in there for 20 minutes. When she came out, she was already in her pajamas, claiming exhaustion. Saturday morning, she was gone before I woke up. Another emergency at the office. I drove to Lyle's gym, but for the first time in years, I couldn't focus on training. Every punch felt weak, every combination sloppy. You're fighting like a man with something on his mind, Lyle observed. Maybe I am. You want my advice? Whatever it is, deal with it head on. Letting things fester just makes them worse. Head on. Right. That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to Dana's office building, a gleaming glass tower that made our little house look like a shack. The parking garage was nearly empty, except for a few cars, including Dana's silver Honda and a black BMW I recognized as Owen's. I parked and waited. 2 hours later, they emerged from the elevator together. Dana was laughing at something Owen had said, her hand resting on his arm. They walked to his car, and he opened the passenger door for her like a gentleman. They drove to the Riverside Inn, a motel on the edge of town that rented rooms by the hour. I watched from across the street as Owen paid cash for a room. They disappeared inside Unit 12. I sat in my truck for 3 hours, watching that door, waiting for my heart to stop breaking. When they finally came out, Dana's hair was mussed and Owen's shirt was wrinkled. They kissed goodbye in the parking lot like teenagers. The drive home was a blur. I kept thinking about all the signs I'd missed, all the lies I'd swallowed, all the times I'd made excuses for her distance. Dana got home an hour after me, full of stories about her exhausting day at the office and how sorry she was to miss our usual Saturday night movie. Rain check? She asked, already heading for the shower again. Sure, I said. Rain check. But as I watched her disappear upstairs, I knew there wouldn't be any rain checks. Not anymore. The game had changed, and Dana didn't even know it yet. Sunday dinner used to be sacred in our house. Dana would cook her famous pot roast, I'd open a bottle of wine, and we'd talk about our week, our plans, our dreams. Now we sat across from each other like strangers, the silence broken only by the scraping of forks against plates. Good roast, I said, though it tasted like cardboard. Thanks. It's the same recipe I always use. The same recipe, but everything else had changed. Dana kept checking her phone, smiling at messages she didn't share. When it buzzed during dessert, she actually got up to answer it in the kitchen. Sorry, work emergency, she said when she returned. On Sunday? You know how demanding Owen can be. Oh, I was starting to get a pretty good picture of Owen's demands. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Dana slept peacefully beside me. Or pretended to sleep. It was hard to tell the difference anymore. Monday morning brought a revelation that made me freeze. Dana had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, and when I glanced at the screen, I saw their text conversation spread out like evidence at a crime scene. Owen. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. You're incredible. Dana. Harold suspects nothing. He's too wrapped up in his little projects. Owen. When can we tell him? I'm tired of sneaking around. Dana. Soon. I just need to figure out the finances first. The house, the retirement accounts. I can't afford to walk away with nothing. My hands shook as I read further back in their conversation. Months of messages. Plans to leave me once Dana figured out how to maximize her divorce settlement. Jokes about my midlife crisis and my pathetic friendship with Lyle. But the worst part was a message from 3 weeks ago. Harold asked me to marry him 25 years ago today. I actually felt sorry for him when I said yes. 25 years. Our entire marriage had been a lie. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to myself. Then I closed the laptop and went to work like nothing had happened. At the warehouse, I couldn't concentrate. Every shipment manifest looked like divorce papers. Every phone call sounded like Dana's laughter. By lunch, my supervisor was asking if I felt okay. Just tired, I said. I drove to a lawyer's office during my break. Margaret Chen, no relation to anyone I knew, just a sharp family attorney with a reputation for protecting working-class husbands from their ambitious wives. How long have you suspected? She asked after I showed her the screenshots. A few days, but looking back, probably months. Any joint assets? The house, retirement accounts, savings, all joint except my pension from the warehouse. She nodded, making notes. With this evidence of adultery and her stated intention to maximize the settlement, we can probably protect most of your assets. But you need to act fast. What do you mean? Freeze the joint accounts, change the passwords on everything, and whatever you do, don't let her know you're onto her until we're ready. I left her office feeling like I had a battle plan for the first time in days. That evening, Dana announced another late night at the office, a presentation for the corporate board that could lead to a promotion. That's great, honey, I said, and I almost meant it. Her promotion would look good in divorce court. Proof she didn't need alimony. While she was gone, I changed every password on every account we shared. Bank statements, credit cards, investment portfolios. I downloaded 5 years of financial records and stored them in a cloud account she didn't know about. Then I called Mickey. Dad, is everything okay? You sound weird. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Has your mother said anything to you about our marriage? About being unhappy? A long pause. Dad, I don't want to get in the middle of... Mickey, please. Another pause. She asked me last month what I thought about divorce, hypothetically. She said some of her friends were going through it, and she wondered how kids handled it. My daughter was 22, hardly a kid who needed to handle her parents' divorce, unless Dana was planning to play the victim card. What did you tell her? That I thought you guys were solid, that you loved each other. Was I wrong? No, sweetheart. You weren't wrong. At least not about me. I could hear her crying softly. Dad, what's happening? I'm going to handle it. Don't worry about anything, okay? Just focus on school. I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo. After I hung up, I sat in my garage for a long time, staring at the Ford I'd been restoring. 3 years of work, and it still wasn't running. Some things, I realized, weren't worth fixing. Dana came home at midnight, full of excitement about her presentation. It had gone so well that Owen had taken the whole team out for drinks to celebrate. That's nice, I said. How is Owen, by the way? Fine. Why? Just wondering. You talk about him a lot lately. She got that guarded look again. He's my boss, Harold. Of course I talk about him. Right, of course. The next morning, she tried to log into our bank account and couldn't. She tried 3 more times before calling me at work. Harold, did you change our banking password? Yeah, I've been worried about security. All those data breaches in the news. Well, what's the new password? I'll give it to you when I get home. I wrote it down somewhere. I need it now. I wanted to transfer some money for groceries. Use your debit card. It's not working either. Because I'd frozen the account, but she didn't need to know that yet. Weird. I'll call the bank and sort it out. Harold, this is really inconvenient. Sorry, honey. I'll handle it. I could hear the frustration in her voice. Good. Let her sweat a little. That afternoon, I drove to Lyle's gym and found him training a teenager who couldn't have weighed more than 120 pounds. This is Marcus, Lyle said. Kid's got heart, but no technique. Reminds me of you when you started. Marcus threw a combination at the heavy bag that would have gotten him eliminated in a real fight. Keep your guard up, I told him, and don't telegraph your punches. The kid nodded and tried again. Better, but still sloppy. Lyle, can I talk to you privately? We walked to his office, a cramped space filled with old fight posters and trophies from his amateur days. Dana's cheating on me, I said without preamble. He didn't look surprised. How long have you known? You knew. I suspected. She's been, different lately. Colder. And that boss of hers has been sniffing around like a dog in heat. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have believed me? Probably not. I'd have made excuses for her, rationalized it away, convinced myself Lyle was jealous or paranoid. What are you going to do? He asked. Divorce her. Take her for everything I can. That's not like you, Harold. Maybe it's time I became someone new. He studied my face for a long moment. You want some advice from an old fighter? Shoot. Don't let anger make you stupid. Fight smart, not hard. What's the difference? Hard fighting is what amateurs do. They swing wild, waste energy, leave themselves open. Smart fighting is about patience. You wait for your opening, then you strike clean and devastating. I thought about that on the drive home. Dana was an amateur, swinging wild with her lies and her schemes. But I was going to be a professional. That night, she tried again to get the banking passwords. I gave her a runaround about calling the bank, promised to sort it out tomorrow. This is ridiculous, Harold. I need access to our money. Our money? You know what I mean? Do I? She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. What's gotten into you lately? Nothing. Just tired of being taken for granted. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Dana. Forget I said anything. But I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was starting to realize that her clueless husband might not be as clueless as she'd thought. The next morning, I watched from my truck as she met Owen in the parking lot of her office building. They had what looked like an intense conversation, lots of gesturing and worried expressions. My phone buzzed with a text from her. Harold, we need to talk tonight, something important. I texted back, looking forward to it. And I was, because I was finally ready to stop fighting like an amateur. The conversation Dana wanted to have never happened that night because I wasn't home when she got there. Instead, I was parked across the street from the Riverside Inn, watching her silver Honda pull into the same parking spot she'd used 3 days earlier. This time, I didn't just watch. I walked across the street and knocked on the door of Unit 12. Owen answered wearing nothing but a towel, his face flushing red when he saw me. Harold, how did you... Dana here? I asked conversationally. She appeared behind him, wrapped in a bedsheet, her face white as paper. Harold, I can explain. No need, I said, pulling out my phone and taking a picture. This explains everything. Owen stepped forward. Now look here, you can't just... Can't what? Take pictures of my wife in a motel room with her boss? Pretty sure I can, Owen. Dana started crying. Please, Harold, it's not what you think. Really? What is it then? We were discussing work and... In your underwear? Owen found his voice again. Harold, let's be adults about this. Dana and I have feelings for each other. We didn't plan for this to happen. How long? I asked Dana. Harold, how long? 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of coming home to me after being with him, of planning my financial ruin while I fixed her car and made her coffee. The divorce papers will be filed Monday, I said. You might want to find somewhere else to stay. I walked back to my truck, ignoring Dana's sobs and Owen's attempts to call me back. My hands were steady as I started the engine. My heart rate was normal. For the first time in weeks, I felt calm. The house was dark when I got home. I sat in my garage and called Margaret Chen. It's Harold Vance. I just caught them together. I have pictures. Good. That makes things much simpler. Can you be in my office first thing Monday morning? I'll be there. And Harold? Don't do anything stupid between now and then. No confrontations, no dramatic scenes. Just let the law handle it. Understood. But as I hung up, I realized Margaret Chen didn't know me very well, because I was just getting started. Dana came home 2 hours later, her makeup smeared and her clothes wrinkled. She found me in the kitchen, reading the newspaper like nothing had happened. Harold, we need to talk. Do we? Please. I know how this looks, but how it looks. Dana, you were naked in a motel room with your boss. How exactly should it look? She sat down across from me, her hands shaking. I never meant for this to happen. Owen and I, we just connected on a professional level, and then you decided to screw him. She flinched. I'd never talked to her like that before. It wasn't like that. What was it like? He understands me, my ambitions, my goals. You've always been content with this. She gestured around our modest kitchen. But I want more. More money? More everything? More excitement, more challenge, more life. More expensive restaurants and fancy hotels? That's not what this is about. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of their text messages. Her face went white again. You've been planning this divorce for months, Dana, figuring out how to take me for everything I'm worth while you run off with Owen, so don't insult my intelligence by pretending this is about love. She stared at the phone screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Harold, Save it. You can sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow you can find somewhere else to stay. This is my house, too. We'll see about that. She started crying again, but this time it felt calculated. Manipulative, like everything else she'd done for the past 6 months. What about Mickey? What are we going to tell her? The truth. That her mother is a cheating liar who threw away 25 years of marriage for a promotion and a BMW. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to me. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you asking for a divorce before you started sleeping with Owen. Fair would have been honesty instead of lies. Fair would have been treating me with the basic respect you'd show a stranger. She had no answer for that. I went to bed alone for the first time in 25 years and slept better than I had in months. Saturday morning, Dana was gone when I woke up. She'd left a note saying she was staying with her sister for a few days until we could work things out. There was nothing to work out, but I didn't bother correcting her. I drove to Lyle's gym and found him opening up for the morning crowd. "You look different," he said. "How so?" "Like you've made a decision?" "I have. I caught them together last night." He nodded grimly. "How do you feel?" "Free." And I did feel free. For the first time in months, I wasn't walking on eggshells, wasn't wondering what Dana was really thinking, wasn't making excuses for her behavior. "What's your next move?" Lyle asked. "Divorce? Take her for everything I can legally get away with." "That's not like you." "Everyone keeps saying that. Maybe the old me was a sucker." Lyle wrapped his hands and started working the heavy bag. "You know what I learned in 20 years of fighting?" "What?" "The guys who talked the toughest usually went down the easiest. It's the quiet ones you had to worry about." I thought about that while I worked out. Dana and Owen had been talking tough, making plans, thinking they were so clever, but they'd underestimated the quiet guy in the garage. That afternoon, I drove to Owen's house. He lived in Maple Heights, the fancy part of town where the lawns were always perfect and the houses looked like magazine covers. His BMW was in the driveway, along with a white Mercedes I didn't recognize. I rang the doorbell. A woman answered, blonde, well-dressed, probably Owen's age. She looked like the kind of person who organized charity luncheons and played tennis at the country club. "Can I help you?" "Are you Mrs. Frazer?" "Yes." "I'm Harold Vance. I think we need to talk." Her expression changed immediately. She knew who I was. "Come in," she said quietly. Owen's house was everything mine wasn't. Marble countertops, leather furniture, artwork that probably cost more than I made in a year. But it felt cold, like a showroom instead of a home. "Would you like coffee?" Rhonda Frazer asked. "That would be nice." She made coffee with an expensive machine that probably required an engineering degree to operate. Her hands were steady, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About Owen and your wife?" 3 months, maybe longer." "Why didn't you say anything?" She sat down across from me, her coffee untouched. "What was I supposed to say? Hi, I'm the wife of the man who's sleeping with your wife?" "Point taken. Besides, I wasn't sure you'd believe me. Men can be oblivious sometimes." "So I've been told." She almost smiled. "Owen thinks he's being subtle, but he's been coming home smelling like perfume for months. Not my perfume." "What are you going to do?" "Divorce him. Take him for everything he's worth." She looked at me directly. "What about you?" "Same thing." "Good. They deserve each other." I liked Rhonda Frazer. She was direct, practical, and clearly not interested in playing the victim. "Can I ask you a favor?" I said. "Depends what it is." "Owen's probably told Dana that I'm some kind of loser, blue-collar guy who doesn't deserve her. I'd like to change that narrative." "What did you have in mind?" I told her my plan. By the time I finished, she was smiling for real. "I like it," she said. "When do we start?" "Monday." That evening, I got a call from Dana. She was crying again. "Harold, please, can we meet somewhere and talk? Really talk?" "About what?" "About us. About saving our marriage." "There is no us, Dana. There hasn't been for months." "That's not true. We can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling, whatever it takes." "Did Owen dump you already?" A long pause. "This isn't about Owen." "Everything's been about Owen for the past 6 months." "Harold, please. I made a mistake, but you made a choice. Every day for 6 months, you chose him over me. You chose to lie, to cheat, to plan my financial ruin behind my back. Those weren't mistakes, Dana. They were decisions." "I love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of not losing half your retirement account." She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. "Fine. If that's how you want to play this, Harold, we'll play it your way. But don't think this is going to be easy for you. I know things about you, too." "Like what?" "Like how you've been drinking more lately, how you've been angry and paranoid, how you've been neglecting your responsibilities at work." None of that was true, but I could see where she was going with it. Paint me as an unstable alcoholic, make herself look like the long-suffering wife. "Good luck with that," I said, and hung up. The war was officially on. Monday morning brought 2 surprises. The first was a call from my supervisor at the warehouse, asking me to come in early for a meeting. The second was finding Dana's car in our driveway when I got home from that meeting. She was sitting at our kitchen table, still wearing her work clothes, looking like she'd been crying for hours. "We need to talk," she said. "I thought we covered everything Saturday night." "Harold, I lost my job." That stopped me cold. What? Owen and I both got fired. Someone filed a complaint with corporate about our relationship. They said it created a hostile work environment. I sat down across from her, trying to look surprised. Who would do that? I don't know. But they had documentation. Screenshots of text messages, hotel receipts, everything. Huh. That's weird. She looked at me suspiciously. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Me? Dana, I fix trucks and move boxes for a living. I don't even know who to call at corporate. That was technically true. I didn't know who to call, but Rhonda Frazer did. Her brother-in-law was on the board of directors at Midwest Logistics Solutions. This is a disaster, Harold. I'm 47 years old. Do you know how hard it's going to be for me to find another job at my level? I'm sure you'll figure something out. We can't afford for both of us to be unemployed. Both of us? You got fired too. That's why they called you in this morning. What? They said you'd been distracted lately, making mistakes, calling in sick. Your supervisor recommended termination. I thought about my conversation with Owen 3 weeks ago, when I'd mentioned being worried about Dana working so much. How I'd called in sick twice to follow them to the motel. How I'd been distracted during meetings, thinking about divorce lawyers and revenge plans. Owen had orchestrated this. Even after getting fired himself, he'd made sure to take me down with him. So now we're both unemployed, Dana continued, and you want to spend money on lawyers and divorce proceedings? Harold, we can't afford that. We can't afford to stay married either. What's that supposed to mean? I pulled out my phone and showed her a bank statement. I've been tracking our expenses for the past 6 months. You've spent $12,000 on restaurants, hotels, and shopping trips. Money we don't have. That's not... It is. You maxed out 2 credit cards and took cash advances on a third. We're $30,000 in debt, Dana. She stared at the numbers, her face pale. I didn't realize... You didn't care. You were too busy playing house with Owen to think about the consequences. We can fix this. I'll get another job, we'll pay off the cards. With what? You just said yourself that finding work at your age won't be easy. There, and now I'm unemployed too. She started crying again. Harold, please. I know I screwed up, but we can work through this. We're a team. We were a team. You decided to join a different one. What do you want me to do? Beg. Fine, I'm begging. Please don't leave me with nothing. You're not getting nothing. You're getting exactly what you deserve. The next few days passed in a blur of lawyer meetings, job interviews, and increasingly desperate phone calls from Dana. She'd moved back into the house, sleeping in the guest room, trying to pretend we could somehow salvage our marriage. But every conversation felt like a negotiation, every interaction calculated. She'd apologize for the affair, then mention how expensive divorce would be. She'd promise to change, then remind me that we couldn't afford separate households. It was all strategy, no sincerity. Thursday afternoon, I was at Lyle's gym when my phone rang. It was Mickey. Dad, Mom called me crying. She says you're trying to ruin her life. What did you tell her? That I didn't want to get in the middle. But Dad, she sounded really upset. She said you've been cruel to her. Cruel how? She wouldn't give me details. Just that you've changed, become someone she doesn't recognize. I thought about that. Maybe I had changed. The old Harold would have forgiven Dana, would have tried to work things out, would have put everyone else's comfort ahead of his own dignity. Maybe that's not a bad thing, I said. Dad, I'm worried about you. Mom says you've been drinking. I haven't been drinking, Mickey. Your mother is lying. Why would she lie about that? Because she's trying to make me look bad for the divorce. Paint me as an unstable alcoholic so she can get better terms. A long pause. Are you guys really getting divorced? Yeah, kiddo. We are. I'm sorry, Dad. I know you loved her. I did. But love isn't enough when the other person doesn't love you back. After I hung up, Lyle found me sitting in his office, staring at old fight posters. Rough conversation? He asked. Dana's trying to turn Mickey against me. That's low, even for her. I should have seen this coming. She's not going to go quietly. What's your next move? I'd been thinking about that. Dana was playing dirty, trying to make me look like the bad guy. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated how much evidence I'd collected. I'm going to remind her why she shouldn't mess with me. Friday evening, I found Dana in the kitchen, making dinner like we were still a happy couple. I made your favorite, she said. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Thanks. We ate in silence for a while, then Dana cleared her throat. Harold, I've been thinking. Maybe we should try counseling before we make any permanent decisions. I've already made my decision. But what if we could work things out? What if this whole mess made us stronger? I looked at her across the table, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But now I could see the calculation behind her eyes, the way she was working every angle. "Dana, do you remember what you said to Owen about marrying me?" Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "What?" "You said you felt sorry for me when you said yes, that our entire marriage was built on pity." "Harold, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. And you know what? You were right. I was pathetic. Grateful that someone like you would settle for someone like me." "That's not true." "It is true, but here's the thing. I'm not that person anymore." I pulled out a folder I'd prepared and set it on the table between us. "What's this?" she asked. "Your choices." She opened the folder and found 3 sets of documents. The first was a generous divorce settlement that would give her half of everything except my pension. The second was a less generous settlement that would leave her with about 30% of our assets. The third was a complete financial breakdown of her affair. Every hotel bill, every restaurant charge, every gift Owen had bought her with money from their shared expense account at work. "If you take option 1 and disappear quietly, we can end this without destroying each other," I said. "If you choose option 2, things get messy but manageable." "What about option 3? "Option 3 is what happens if you keep trying to turn Mickey against me or spread lies about my drinking. I send all of this to the IRS, along with evidence that you and Owen were using company funds for personal expenses." Her face went white. "You wouldn't. Try me." She stared at the documents for a long time. When she looked up, her eyes were hard. "You've changed, Harold. You used to be a good man." "I'm still a good man. I'm just not a stupid one anymore." "And you think this makes you better than me?" "No, Dana, it makes us even." She gathered up the papers and stood up. "I need time to think." "You have until Monday." That weekend, the house felt like a battlefield. Dana barely spoke to me, spending most of her time on the phone with lawyers and friends, trying to find a way out of the corner I'd backed her into. Sunday night, she knocked on my bedroom door. "I'll take option 1, she said quietly. "Smart choice. But I want you to know something, Harold. I did love you once. Maybe not the way you deserved, but I did love you." "I know. And I'm sorry for all of it." For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married 25 years ago. Young, uncertain, full of dreams she wasn't sure she could achieve. "So am I," I said. She nodded and turned to leave. Then she stopped. "What happened to us, Harold? How did we get here?" I thought about that question for a long time after she left. The truth was, we'd gotten here the same way most couples did. One small compromise at a time, one little resentment at a time, one moment of taking each other for granted at a time. But Dana had made the choice to handle it with lies and betrayal. And I'd made the choice to handle it with cold, calculated revenge. Maybe we deserved each other after all. The divorce papers were signed on a Tuesday morning in Margaret Chen's office. Dana wore a black dress that made her look like she was attending a funeral, which in a way she was. 25 years of marriage faded with the scratch of a pen. "That's it," Margaret said, gathering the documents. "The house sale will finalize next month, and the asset division should be complete within 60 days. Dana stood up without looking at me. "I'll have my things out by Friday." "Take your time," I said, though I didn't really mean it. She left without saying goodbye. Margaret waited until the door closed. "You know, Harold, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never seen someone handle a divorce quite like you did." "How's that?" "Most people let emotion drive their decisions. They want to hurt their spouse, or they want to save the marriage, or they want to punish them. You treated it like a business transaction." "Maybe that's all it was? Oh, was it?" I thought about that question as I drove to the warehouse to clean out my locker. 3 weeks of job hunting had finally paid off. I'd landed a position at a smaller logistics company across town. Less money, but more responsibility. A chance to start over. The warehouse felt different as I walked through it one last time. Smaller somehow, like I'd outgrown it without realizing it. My replacement was a kid fresh out of college, eager and nervous. He reminded me of myself 25 years ago. "Any advice?" he asked as I handed over my keys. "Don't trust anyone completely," I said, "and always have a backup plan." He looked confused, but he'd understand eventually. Everyone did. That afternoon, I stopped by Lyle's gym. He was training a new fighter, a woman in her 30s who moved like she had something to prove. "Harold," he called out when he saw me. "How'd it go?" "It's done." "How do you feel?" "Empty." And I did feel empty. Not sad exactly, but hollow. Like I'd won a war but lost something essential in the process. "That's normal," Lyle said. You've been running on adrenaline for months. Now that it's over, you're crashing. Maybe. What's next? New job starts Monday. New apartment next week. New life, I guess. You sound thrilled. I watched the woman throw combinations at the heavy bag. Her form was good, but she was holding back, pulling her punches. Can I ask you something, Lyle? Shoot. Do you think I'm a bad person? He stopped wrapping his hands and looked at me directly. Why would you ask that? Because I destroyed 2 people's lives and I don't feel guilty about it. You didn't destroy their lives, Harold. They did that themselves. You just made sure they faced consequences. Dana's 47 and unemployed. Owen's getting divorced and blacklisted in the industry. Their lives are ruined. And whose fault is that? I knew he was right, but it didn't make me feel better. That evening, I went home to find Dana packing boxes in the living room. She'd been staying at her sister's, but coming by during the day to sort through our belongings. Almost done, she said without looking up. Need help with anything? No. I watched her pack photo albums, pictures of vacations we'd taken, holidays we'd celebrated, moments when we'd actually been happy. It felt like watching someone bury a body. Dana? What? For what it's worth, I am sorry it ended this way. She stopped packing and looked at me. Are you? Because you seem pretty satisfied with how things turned out. I'm satisfied that you can't hurt me anymore. That's different from being happy about it. I never wanted to hurt you, Harold. But you did. Every day for 6 months, you hurt me, and you would have kept hurting me if I hadn't found out. She sat down on the couch, surrounded by boxes and memories. I know, and I hate myself for it. Do you? Or do you just hate that you got caught? She was quiet for a long time. Both, I think. It was the most honest thing she'd said in months. What are you going to do now? I asked. Start over, I guess. Find a job, find a place to live, figure out who I am without you. And Owen? Owen's history. He blamed me for getting him fired, said I was too reckless, too emotional. Turns out he's not such a stand-up guy when things get difficult. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said. I thought I knew what I was looking for. Excitement, passion, someone who understood my ambitions. She laughed bitterly. Turns out what I was really looking for was a way to destroy the best thing in my life. I wasn't perfect either, Dana. I got comfortable, took you for granted, stopped trying. Maybe, but you never betrayed me. You never lied to me. You never made me feel like a fool. She finished packing and loaded the boxes into her car. At the door, she turned back one last time. Goodbye, Harold. Goodbye. I watched her drive away, then close the door on 25 years of marriage. The house felt enormous and silent. I walked through the rooms, noting all the empty spaces where her things had been. The walls looked bare without her pictures, the shelves hollow without her books. In the kitchen, I made coffee and sat at the table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together, where we'd planned our future, argued about money, celebrated Mickey's achievements, and slowly grown apart without realizing it. My phone buzzed with a text from Mickey. Mom told me everything's final. You okay? I texted back, I'm fine. How are you holding up? Sad, but not surprised. I think I knew this was coming before either of you did. Smart kid. Smarter than her parents, apparently. I love you, Dad, and I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Love you too, kiddo. I finished my coffee and went to the garage. The Ford was still there, still not running after 3 years of work. I popped the hood and stared at the engine. Some things weren't worth fixing, but some things were. I picked up my wrench and got to work. 2 hours later, the engine turned over and roared to life. The sound echoed through the garage like a victory cry. I'd finally fixed something that mattered. The next morning, I drove the Ford to my new apartment across town. It was smaller than the house, but it was mine. No shared spaces, no joint decisions, no walking on eggshells. I unpacked my boxes and arranged my furniture, creating a space that reflected who I was now instead of who I used to be. The old Harold's things looked different in the new apartment. Stronger somehow, more confident. Monday morning brought my first day at the new job. The company was smaller but more innovative, willing to try new approaches instead of clinging to old methods. My supervisor was a woman about my age who'd worked her way up from the warehouse floor. We're glad to have you, she said. Your experience at Midwest Logistics will be valuable here. Happy to help. I should mention, we did get a call about you, from someone at your old company. Owen Frazer, I think. What did he say? That you were unreliable, had anger management issues, couldn't be trusted with responsibility? She smiled. Good thing we also called 3 other people who said you were the best supervisor they'd ever worked with. Thank you for checking. Owen Frazer sounded like a man with an axe to grind. We don't make hiring decisions based on personal vendettas. I liked this place already. That afternoon, I stopped by Lyle's gym for a workout. The routine felt good, familiar but different, like coming home after a long trip. You look better, Lyle observed. I feel better. Ready to start dating again? I laughed. Give me a few months to remember who I am first. Fair enough. But Harold? Yeah? Don't let what Dana did make you cynical about love. She was one person, not all people. I'll try to remember that. But as I worked the heavy bag, throwing combinations that were sharper and more focused than they'd been in months, I realized I wasn't thinking about love or dating or finding someone new. I was thinking about the satisfaction of a clean punch, perfectly timed and devastatingly effective. Maybe that was enough for now. 3 months later, I got a call from Margaret Chen. Harold, I thought you should know. Dana's filed for bankruptcy. She's also being investigated by the IRS for those expense account irregularities. What about Owen? Divorced and unemployed. His wife took him for everything, and he can't find work in the industry. Word is, he's moved back in with his mother. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated, victorious. Instead, I felt nothing at all. Harold, you still there? Yeah, I'm here. How does it feel, knowing they got what they deserved? I thought about that question for a long time. Like justice, I said finally. Cold, efficient, and completely hollow. That's the thing about revenge, Harold. It's never as satisfying as you think it's going to be. She was right. I'd gotten everything I wanted. My dignity, my assets, my freedom, and my revenge. But none of it had given me back what I'd really lost. The ability to trust someone completely. The comfort of shared dreams. The simple pleasure of coming home to someone who was genuinely happy to see me. Dana and Owen had destroyed those things, and no amount of revenge could restore them. But maybe that was okay. Maybe some things were supposed to stay broken, to remind you of the price of betrayal and the value of honesty. I hung up the phone and went back to work, building something new from the pieces of my old life. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Rhonda Frazer at the grocery store. She looked good, confident, well-dressed, like a woman who'd found her footing after a storm. Harold, how are you? Good. You? Excellent. I got a job at a marketing firm downtown. It's challenging work, but I love it. That's great. What about you? How's the new job? Good. Really good, actually. We stood there for a moment, 2 people who'd helped each other through the worst period of their lives. Any regrets? She asked. I thought about it. About the divorce? No. About how I handled it? Sometimes. You did what you had to do. Maybe, but I became someone I didn't recognize in the process. We all did. The question is, do you like who you became? I considered that. The new Harold was harder, more cynical, less trusting, but he was also stronger, more self-reliant, less willing to accept being treated poorly. I'm still figuring that out, I said. She nodded. Well, for what it's worth, I think you're a good man who was pushed too far. Don't let what they did change the essential you. Thanks, Rhonda. That means something. Take care of yourself, Harold. You too. I watched her walk away, then finished my shopping and drove home to my apartment. It was quiet and clean and entirely my own. I made dinner for one, watched a movie I wanted to see, and went to bed when I felt like it. It was a simple life, but it was honest. No lies, no betrayals, no hidden agendas. Just me figuring out who I was supposed to be next. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like a pretty good place to start.